This is the John Batchelor Show. The United States Navy. The United States Navy is the single most important reason the United States remains a world power and achieved that a century ago. The ability to project sea power, the ability to protect our commercial routes, the ability to deliver the United States military's ground forces overseas and restock them frequently. That has explained why the United States is able to police the world since the Second World War. It was the lack of power in the first half of the century that led to the conflict we now know as Pearl Harbor, because the Japanese Navy had built up a considerable force, a force capable of, we now know, throwing offensive power against the Navy in Hawaii. Now, today, the United States Navy is supreme. Everyone agrees to that. 286 battle force, which is down considerably from the heyday, but those are big, fancy ships out there, and 3,700 naval aircraft. Ship for ship, we're the best in the solar system. Captain Chuck Nash, United States Navy aviator, retired, is here to comment on a new player in the 21st century. Right now, the player in East Asia, but these ships go everywhere, and the player is China. 260 vessels in the Chinese Navy, 75 of them principal combatants. That's a quote. Chuck, a very good evening to you. The Chinese Navy, did it sneak up on us, or have we watched this happening?
We've been watching it happen. A lot of people are feigning shock and awe, but actually for the last decade, the Chinese Navy has been on a consistent glide path of building a world-class Navy, all the way up to and including the manufacture of ballistic missile submarines, nuclear attack submarines, and they are still pursuing building an aircraft carrier. You'll recall the Chinese submarine that surfaced very close behind a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier recently. And then, of course, you've had the Navy ship that was harassed off a Chinese island where they were operating in international waters, but the Chinese came out and the ship wound up spraying water on them and things like that. The Chinese have become very, very aggressive lately in dealing with not only U.S. forces in proximity to their coastline, but also, as you point out, some of the neighbors. And the neighbors are getting very nervous, and they want to make sure that nothing happens that would cause the U.S. to reduce its presence in the area, because they see the U.S. Navy as the guarantor of their freedom of the seas.
I'm speaking to Captain Chuck Nash, an aviator. We're going to switch over to the submariner service right now because, as Chuck says, the Chinese may in the future have an aircraft carrier. That makes up a battle group. That's what we build our ability to project power around. But submarines are a factor always in terms of monitoring the other side and in terms of projecting power in sea lanes. And I note that there's a new submarine base, kind of right near a five-star resort in Hainan Island in the South China Sea. Now, Chuck, are there submarines? I mean, this back to the Cold War. There were the boomers and there were the attack submarines, the Los Angeles class. Are they matching us submarine to submarine, or is this still pretty much the quiet service but not as silent as ours?
They have very, very good submarine technology. There has been a lot of industrial espionage and military espionage over the last 10, 15 years. The Chinese are very, very good at exploiting U.S. IT systems, and for the last 5 years, they have had a concerted effort to penetrate U.S. defense contractors, U.S. military servers, and to get in there and suck up all of the information they can. What we have done is we have shifted a lot of our nuclear-powered attack submarines, which go after other submarines and ships. We've shifted them to the West Coast, and we're starting to use Guam more, not only as a build-up for the Marines coming out of Japan and the Air Force, but we're also rotating submarines out of there so that they're closer to the South China Sea to get on station quickly.
Chuck, the detail here is that the Chinese military budget is 1/3 for the Navy. That seems staggering compared to their resources. You know, we're told that 100 million people are are wandering migrant farmers who are on subsistence level, but in any event, they're throwing a lot of money at it. Are they building ships that can match us right now, or are they still imitating our stuff?
They're building some very, very good ships. And more importantly, not only are they building very good ships, they're building ships that are different than what we would build. Although they have some destroyers and cruisers that are interesting, they have very, very capable surface-to-surface missiles. But the other thing that they're building is a new type of ship that is a very high-speed ship. It's got a gun on the front and carries missiles and torpedoes, and it's a very small crew. So this thing it's fast. It's like 60 knots. And the fastest thing we have out there right now is a littoral combat ship, and it's also the cheapest ship that the U.S. Navy could buy, and the price tag last time I looked was over $700 million. So if we go into a situation where we're buying these littoral combat ships, and it's the cheapest ship we can buy, and the price tag keeps pushing toward $1 billion, they're going to outbuild us, and they will outswarm us with these fast, highly capable ships with small crews and their submarine fleet. And now all of a sudden what you have is they can put out a very, very capable area denial and sea denial threat. So they can constantly say, we're a defensive force, we're a defensive force. But you look at how those weapon systems can be used, and they can be used in a highly offensive manner.
Right now, the Chinese Navy's strategy is to use the South China Sea as their base, and they're claiming they're going to extend their base, their defensive perimeter, to the Philippines. Okay, well and good. It's surface ships, it's submarines, but Chuck, you're the aviator. You know that our ability to project power has to do with the aircraft carrier. They don't have one yet. Does that mean that we remain top dog as long as we keep our carriers like the Reagan out there?
We remain top dog as long as we can project power using tactical aircraft. However, if they can push those carriers, the carrier operating force, further and further out, which is their strategy, then all of a sudden you wind up in a situation where you can fly aircraft, but they're irrelevant to the fight because they've pushed you so far back.
If they keep us farther out from the Japanese islands or the Philippine islands, that limits the ability of even our superior aircraft, refueling and everything, to project power, to protect our allies such as Taiwan, such as Singapore, and such as Japan. All correct, Captain?
All correct.
And therefore, we've already got a map that's been changed by their ability to project to the Philippines, correct? It's already done.
It is, and that's why the United States Navy must never give up on both aircraft carriers, because aircraft carriers, first and foremost, provide air-to-ground support for troops in combat. So if we ever intend to put troops in combat anywhere, we need that close air support. We need that firepower support. The other thing that we must never give up on are the SSGNs, the nuclear-powered attack submarines.
The Los Angeles class stuff.
It will be, right, and the follow-on, you have the Virginia class, and now they're talking about a next gen. If we give up on those submarines, then it's game over. Maybe not right away, but we've sown the seeds for the end of the game, because if we cannot interdict their submarines, then what happens is they just keep stiff-arming and holding our assets outside of reach.
Captain Chuck Nash, United States Navy, retired, commenting on the rise and projection of power of the Chinese Navy. I remind you all, Alfred Thayer Mahan, turn of the century, 19th to 20th, very carefully taught that the projection of naval power will make the United States of America the most significant presence in the world in the 20th century. He was right. Here we are in the 21st century. It still holds. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.